All right, so now we have the pleasure to introduce Lora Tamošiūnienė from the institution Mykolas Romeris University, which is a Lithuanian higher education university. This university offers three-level studies in social sciences and humanities, and also sees its key mission in developing a mature, enterprising and independent future citizen. Lora research interests are in innovative teaching, translating plurilingualism to social sciences and the humanities. Thank you, Lora.
Thank you, Elena. We are partner number 3 in this project. And by listening to the presentation of what partner number 2 did, I thought that perhaps many of our presentations will connect as in a tree. So we have the same trunk, but different branches and different leaves. So some of the information perhaps will be hardened in the trunk, and some of the information will be softer and come out as individual for different partners. So I will make my presentation based on 2 key concepts here. There is competence-based approach and on the training modules. Because one of the tasks, at least the task that was black and white in the project proposal, was to table the training modules for us. So we did a lot of things before we prepared the modules, and will speak therefore, by we I mean myself, but I will represent all the participants here, will speak about 2 things in the presentation. Project approach to plurilingualism as competence and teacher competence, and project module design overview. By the overview I mean that I'll simply present an opportunity to very briefly list through the modules and have a very short glimpse of some pages of the modules. And in some instances I try to exercise this method of plurilinguistic teaching by using non-English language, but I'll keep this a secret till the right moment. Non-Lithuanian either. Speaking about the approach, we slightly reverted the accents of what Paloma made, and we say that plurilingualism is a value and competence that is a means of communication. So we think that in the real world, values should rule the competences and not the other way around. So therefore, we look at the plurilingualism more as a value agglomerate, and then we partition it into different principles that develop into values. We were consulting for the competence part, actually, a lot of European documents. We were reading the deliverables of Partner 2 and also rereading what the other partners were contributing to Partner 2. But the key European documents that we all look at and that we all use as our resources were Dublin descriptors for competence, definitions, qualifications, framework of the European higher education area, and EU Commission Teachers' Core Competence Requirements and Development. It is interesting that in the EU Commission Teachers' Core Competence Requirements and Development, there is a international teacher model suggested. Given all the diversities of all the countries, even within this project, we have 5 countries: Czech, Polish, Spanish, Turkish and Lithuanian, backgrounds, school systems, university structures and subjects that are taught at the universities. We also reviewed political documents, and this was also reflected in Partner 2 work. Still, there is one common international teacher model that reflects the key positions that a teacher is an instructional manager, a caring person, expert learner, and cultural and civic person, which is very important to address all those areas if you want to develop the competences in all of them. We were then thinking of teacher competence as structured in Dublin descriptors. And we actually use this for our purposes. Dublin descriptors speak about ability of teachers to use knowledge, about skills that need to be developed within one set of competence development, personal, social, and/or methodological abilities in work or study situations and in professional and personal development, and about values, assumptions, and approaches again. We also were looking at the document size and also at the European projects, and we identified that for the knowledge part of teacher competence, we can list the following knowledge characteristics. That for plurilingual integration, a teacher should possess a knowledge of the world context, of cultural knowledge, of have awareness of worldwide linguistic diversity and individual linguistic diversity, awareness of the self and others, awareness of languages of schooling and languages of existing minorities, knowledge of EU documents on plurilingual and intercultural education, education for plurilingualism and education for plurilingual awareness, in-depth understanding of plurilingualism by viewing it from different perspectives. So, in effect, some of this knowledge is already introduced in teacher education. We are integrating into the knowledge areas by adding additional knowledge of plurilingualism through creating our modules, and especially knowledge of the world context is perhaps the knowledge that would come with very many competences. The principle is not to create a different set of knowledge, skills, or values for the teacher education, but to successfully contribute to the existing and expand them. Now, in the skills section, we have actually a very long list of the skills that could be also enriched for plurilingual integration. And some of them we believe are enriched through our module creation and module plans. It's, one of the skills is to plan lessons, manage lesson time and classroom, evaluate teaching and learning process, construct school classroom plurilingual environment, distinguish otherness, understand and respect otherness, use plurilingual repertoire, expand plurilingual repertoire, communicate across cultures by using the acquired plurilingual repertoire, build relationship and communicate free of prejudice, make learners aware of their language repertoire, encourage learners' autonomy in intercultural interaction, use pedagogical strategies and tools for plurilingual education, reflect on plurilingual and intercultural factors in learning teaching processes. We also looked at the values, assumptions, and approaches that are important for plurilingual competence building. And we suggest that we should look at the general educational values, such as school ethics, democracy, human rights, respect for otherness and others as one of the values, respect for the cultures embodied in languages and in the cultural identities of others, tolerance, freedom of prejudices and stereotypes. And apart from the components that should come into the understanding of teacher competence for plurilingual integration, we were working very hard on actually creating the model or the competence building scheme in this project. For this purpose, we consulted other European projects, and not only European projects that had a similar mission. And also we consulted some of our local Polish, Czech, Lithuanian, Spanish policy-making documents, And in effect, we produced this competence building scheme consisting of exploring intercultural language teaching and learning, active construction, making connections, social interaction, reflection, and responsibility. I know that partner 4 will speak more about this competence building scheme within a classroom. I also want to highlight that we rely very much on the intercultural integration and competences that exist in the teacher competence building, and very often use methods and activities from that area. Now, speaking about module design, so all modules that are created for the project have more or less universal scheme and universal structures. They are counted approximately for 6 academic hours per module, 2 academic hours face-to-face teaching, alternatively it could be online presentation or tutoring, 4 academic hours individual assignment. Target audience for the project was pre-service and in-service teachers. We have decided on 8 modules for the competence building in plurilingual education for the teachers, and it roughly comes to 48 academic hours, which for the pre-service teachers and for the university courses approaches very close to the 2 credits as required by the Dublin descriptors. So we also were holding in view the number of hours that could be easily integrated either into existing educational courses, or they can be offered separately as individual courses for in-service teachers. So it would again come to 48, 54 hours with the additional individual assignment. The other characteristics of module design is the whole content ordering. So modules usually start with the rationale, which is explanation of the principle that comes out into the title of the module, and usually the rationale is written from the as a summary of the existing newest theoretical approaches to that principle. Also, the rationale focuses on the most interesting and relevant, perhaps, features of the value principles that teachers should address. Then the whole procedure is partitioned into 5 or 4 steps. And the logic of the steps is that the teachers should first contextualize the principle within the group, within the institution that they come from. Then in step 2, they should contextualize, bring this understanding of the principle to the classroom contextualization. Step 3 is removed from most of the publications that we have made, but this is one of the richest, perhaps, product of our project, because this is all the partners' contributions to the classroom activities that would help the teacher to observe, to practice, and to make conclusions about the workability of the principle that is introduced in the title of the module. So sample activities are also given in the modules, and also they are taken from virtual learning environment that partners in Valladolid, partner number 1, produced, maintained, and updated over those 3 years. And step number 4 is a reflection stage for internalization, the understanding of the principle for the teachers. Also, there are reading resources and activity resources added to each module, and they, especially this part, can be further extended and anchored to the abilities and resources of each institution. Now the reflection stage roughly looks like this, and we color-coded this reflection stage for the teachers to perhaps to signal their transition from the gray area of guessing and pre-awareness stage of, say, introducing the understanding of otherness as in Module 1, their assumptions, attitude, their knowledge, perhaps of possibility to use this value in the classroom activities, to the green stage, actually what happens in reality when in class they try to observe, to mention, to practice the understanding of otherness, and post-activity reflection. So this is the, so to say, the juice, the orange juice of the learning process. So we color-coded this reflection stage in all the modules, and it follows with the explanation of each stage, and teachers are encouraged after being actively involved in module training to carry out their own reflections. Now I transit to part number 2, very briefly reviewing the training modules and showing some of the examples of those training modules, and also you'll see the titles of each module, which are the principles of the values that we introduce in the plurilingualism. So number 1 was opening learners to all forms of otherness, otherness being one of the biggest ideas nowadays, and understanding of otherness and accepting otherness is very important. For introducing module number 1, we translated all the modules in the languages of the partner countries, that is, all the partners translated the modules, and we reviewed those translations, and I just happened to be able to read some languages, so I happened to be able to read Polish, for instance. Training module number 1 opens with introduction, a quote from American developmental psychologist and educational philosopher Gardner about changing minds. This is an aphoristic statement, but it also looks like a poem. On the right-hand side, it lists the key features that teachers are encouraged to be looking at, into reason, into research, into resonance, redescription, rewards and resources, real-world events, resistance, overcome. And there is an explanation in longer lines in English, given what it means. So it comes up to 7 important commitments of the teacher to be able to convert oneself to a different level of understanding and a different level of competence as a language teacher. And it happened that a Polish group translated this extract very beautifully into Polish. So this is the practice of multilingualism. I'll read this in Polish. I hope that you understand. And this is a test for Polish group to accepting the otherness. So please listen. Umysły mogą się zmieniać pod wpływem logicznej argumentacji, rozumowanie. Umysły mogą się zmieniać pod wpływem danych obserwacji, studium przypadków, badania. Umysły mogą się zmieniać wtedy, kiedy przez zmianę potrafią współgrać z nowymi treściami oraz ich prezenterem, rezonans. Umysły mogą się zmieniać wtedy, kiedy nowe treści prezentowane są poprzez wielorakie i zróżnicowane środki oraz systemy symbole, redefinicja, redeskrypcja. Umysły mogą się zmieniać wtedy, kiedy dostateczne nagrody lub kary zostaną zastosowane, nagrody i zasoby. Umysły mogą się zmieniać wtedy, kiedy następuje dramatyczna zmiana w kondycji świata, wdrożenia ze świata rzeczywistego. Umysły mogą się zmieniać wtedy, kiedy główny opór wobec pożądanej zmiany umysłu jest neutralizowany, opór pokonany. also, I set an example of daring to speak the language, no matter how bad your pronunciation is. Also for Module 1, we included the expert on multilingualism grants quote on the otherness, and the definition of the other is based on difference, that which is not the same, or that which is something other than. Therefore, the only way to think about and thus define a term like the other is in context, because the whole philosophy of model structure is contextualizing the knowledge and understanding that the principle and the value exists around you and finding it in your environment. We also were using more than once throughout the whole module structure and in training processes and very many documents, European Council on Education and Languages structure of the understanding of plurilingualism within one language and in school situation. So the structure that you will find in most of the modules. Module number 2 would be comparison of various cultures, and this is one of the handouts that you receive symbolizing the culture. So fish in water symbolizes the culture on which we depend, and we may not be even aware of the culture until we're taken out of the water. Training module number 3 is learner autonomy in cross-disciplinary projects, and the rationale for this is that learner autonomy is never the same, that autonomy changes throughout life. So do not take autonomy for granted, do not look at your students as being autonomous in everything and everywhere and all the time. Training module number 4 is making learners aware of their language repertoire and their value. I will not read the rationale now, but teachers learn about their learning roads. We all learn to read emails, to fill out project documentation, to read the doctor's prescriptions without being trained for those languages. So we have our learning road of coming to that particular language. There are linguistic encounters. For instance, we may not be able to speak the whole language, but we know and we learn throughout this project functional words like hola, c'est la vie, and we use sometimes this in dialogues. There is embedded language. I know that the Spanish computer language is in Spanish, as it turns out, not in English, but still there are words that are never translated. I may say in Lithuania, National Windows, and Windows is not translated, although the rest of the computer is translated. And perhaps we will be using bodega very soon, because we also know what it is, but cannot translate it. Now, training module 5 is reflection on language. In this module, actually, I would like to read the rationale because this is my favorite module and I find it very moving. The essence of plurilingualism is individuals practicing languages. Language life, its character, life cycles really depend on human life. In ethnologue, project language life is a consequence of human life. Languages particularly gain momentum if they are practiced by growing generations. Children extend the life of a language to their own children. The last known speaker is past childbearing age is a phrase that says that particular language is dying. But a language can become L2, educational or vigorous, by finding new learners and new applications. Then it gets a second life again. Languages are associated with a diversity of human activities throughout life and history. And don't know how much time I've got left. We have now, at this point, 915 languages that are dead. So it's a sad number. And also I planned very hard to, in the country of European basketball gold champions, to present some information about European basketball silver champions. So we are here, so Lithuania is the bottom country. And also there we have all those languages in Lithuania, as it turns out, even gives numbers of how many people speak the languages. And about, well, we have Belarusian, so 63,000 it appears. We have Karelian, 50 people in different places, and actually the last person alive is of a grandparent age, so no natural extension of the language. It's nearly extinct. Now, Lithuanian 3 million, we have national, almost national anthem, 3 million. We sing it at the basketball games, so you may have heard it. Then there is Lithuanian Sign Language, which is a vigorous language. It's a growing population that needs to use this language, and it is used in educational institutions, on media, so it becomes a vigorous language. We have Polish language in Lithuania, 258,000. We have Gypsy language, Romani Baltic language. It says developing. There are people living and there are children who are speaking this language, but it is not an institutional language. We have Russian language, 344,000 in Lithuania. It's alive. We have schools in Lithuania that teach Russian to Russian students. And Ukrainian, 45,000. So the other topics, the other remaining topics are raise awareness in linguistic knowledge versus language knowledge, and there we use and study European documents. Also in Module 7, interaction with people belonging to other social groups, we introduce also as a way of contextualizing pictures, showing that differences may help to achieve the fruit of the work. And training Module 9 is communication skills free of prejudices and stereotypes. Is a very important topic, especially when addressing subtle stereotyping. For instance, now I may address the whole of the audience very stereotypically, sort of criticizing you. So, do you really understand Lithuanian, Polish, Czech, Turkish, Spanish? My intonation says that I am very sarcastic and ironic, and I know that perhaps very many of you do not understand, and so this is a question that is innocent, but it very subtly sort of criticizes someone, and this is the model that addresses the subtle stereotyping as well. And I would like to finish my presentation. I just have to finish my presentation by saying ačiū and viso gero. And this is a connection to partner number 6, who will be using those words, I think, in her activity. So, thank you.